What if the Caledonia survived? Part 2. When we last left off, Scotland had just begun the process of industrializing and was undergoing major changes from the wealth from the Colonial Empire and the lack of Jacobite revolts. In this video, we'll go over how Scotland would be transformed with the question of independence. This era would also see national goals grow in Scotland. Scotland has geographically definable borders that forge a national identity amongst the Scottish people, ultimately leading to a forging of a Scottish nationalist movement in the 19th century. This movement would renew interest in full independence from the English, and as time would go on, the English would force to confront the issue of Scottish nationalism. In our timeline in Ireland, Scottish nationalism ultimately forced London to pass legislation to grant home rule to the Irish in 1914, granting the Irish an independent parliament from Ireland. However, this preceded World War I, and Home Rule was suspended during the war. This led to a split in the Irish nationalist cause. Many Kurds joined the British military during the war, so as to come back as home-ass troops for an independent Ireland. However, others were so discontented with the British rule that they rose up in the 1916 Easter Revolt that were ultimately led to the later Irish War of Independence. The question is, would Scotland end up in the same predicament as Ireland? Ireland chose no. Firstly, Scotland, unlike Ireland, would be semi-independent in this timeline, and have its own parliament and thus home rule. There would never be the same impetus that ultimately led to the Easter Rising in Ireland. Of course, there is a chance that there would be small-scale revolts or foreign-backed revolts during the war, but they wouldn't be nearly as large and critical as the Eastern Rising was in Ireland. So, Scotland would never rebel violently against the British like the Irish did in their timeline. Scotland would gain independence soon after the end of World War I, with the massive economic slump the world slipped in and the mass independence of nations in Europe. Despite their breakaway, the English and Scottish would remain close allies and cooperate. Scotland would be an allied nation in World War II, the Scottish and the English would aid each other in colonial wars, etc. After World War II, the colonization would result in the gradual loss of the empire. However, the mark the Scottish left in their colonies would still enormously affect their colonial nations. India in this timeline would have been divided between the English Raj and the Scottish Raj. However, after World War II, the English and Scottish would likely negotiate a unification of India as part of the country's independence. The success of the Scottish colony would ultimately result in the forging of a massive Scottish colonial empire stretching from Central America to the Malay archipelago, and it would be effectively act as an extension of the English Empire. Scotland would retain much of its cultural identity, and England would have much closer ties to the country. Thank you for watching. Consider liking and sharing the video, and subscribing if you haven't. If you like this video, you may like my video on what Vikings colonized America. As always, thank you for watching and have a marvelous day.